All right, everyone. Good morning. This is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way. It's Thursday. That means Joe is with us. Joe, hello. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. It's been quite a long week, I think, hasn't it?
It
Getting
has.
back to the action Saturday.
It has. It's been long. It's been after the joys of last week, but we're gradually getting there. Big night for Celtic women tonight, Ryan. That's probably well, certainly the big thing the club are pushing officially. We had press conference yesterday. Elena Sadiku, Callum McGregor had one as well, didn't he? Chatting about both the women's team and moving on to the men's team as well. But it's a big night for them. I think they're going to do it, guys. I think they're going to
Yeah,
do it.
me
I think
too.
they might be in the Champions League group stage tomorrow.
Be great for the club as a whole and great for the evolution of the women's game, which is vitally important. Women's football is growing day by day. You look everywhere and look at Barcelona, you look at down in England in the WSL.
Just
It's
playing
definitely
Barcelona.
growing. Yeah, that's that. This is what you've got to do. You've got to get into these opportunities and get these chances to play against the elite level. Because, like the men's team, that's the only way you get better is if you prove yourself in front of the established women's teams, because there are many of them abroad as well as down south for England. So fingers crossed to Elena and the women tonight that they get the business done in Airdrie and get Celtic into the Champions League for the first time. The women's team.
1-0 in the first leg, Joe, so it was relatively tight, but I think Celtic were the better team. That was the official away leg, but it wasn't very away because it was in Airdrie. So the home leg's in Airdrie as well tonight. Given that we beat them and should have beaten them by more, they're feeling good about tonight.
Yeah, a real strange situation, as you say, with the home and away leg taking place in Airdrie, and given that the women's team also featured at Celtic Park, there's so many kind of moving parts in there. No, I think they've got a great chance, the best opportunity. And it's, like Ryan says there, it's a kind of steady evolution. I was at club media at Celtic when the women's team went professional a few years ago. And even, the kind of build up to that and what's kind of unfolded since through Fran Alonso and obviously Elena Sadiku rather. I had the pleasure of interviewing her for the Herald before the start of the season and went up to Celtic Park and sat down with her in one of the lounges. It was the first time I'd spoken to her and just really exuding confidence. And I wrote about this afterwards and I did so in such a way I hope it wasn't intended to be condescending anyway. It was actually a real positive that she spoke on the right side of arrogance, kind of confidence pushing arrogance. And the reason I wanted to identify it was certainly in my experience of interviewing the kind of Celtic side and the women's side, there's not a lack of belief, but for a long time it felt like, and Elena's addressed this directly herself, like kind of going in as the underdogs. And when she came to the club, she was like, Celtic should never be underdogs, no matter what level they're playing at, men's, women's, whatever. And she speaks like the kind of confidence that you see so often in the men's game is a massive part, especially when you're playing in those top level or pushing for those top level tournaments. So I think the mindset, I think Fran Alonso did a great job as manager beforehand, but I think she's really worked in the mindset of having that belief to go and do it. And obviously, that paves the way for something like tonight to go and believe in themselves and get that result. And it's just a case of obviously getting in 1-0. It's just a case of not getting beaten. So yeah, I'm sure they'll go to win, but they know that they know exactly what they need to do.
I think we're just waiting for that breakthrough moment for women's football in Scotland and that huge event. And I know Scotland and Glasgow City have played in the Champions League previously, but Celtic getting there would obviously be a huge thing. And if we were to get through and draw one of the biggest teams with one of these or many of these huge female stars, then and they play it at Celtic Park, that could be the real breakthrough moment. So it's a big night. Good luck to them. I hope that they do it. Not promising I'll be getting up for it because I think it's a 4:15 kickoff. But we'll see how it goes. Good luck to them. What else do you want to talk about today, guys? So we get Callum McGregor press conference yesterday. He addressed the women's side. He also spoke about Arne Engels. Arne, I noticed he was saying, not Arnie. So maybe we need to make a wee note of that. Tony's still getting round the surname, so we'll leave him for a couple of weeks. What did you make of what McGregor had to say, Ryan?
Yeah, he's just a consummate professional, as always, when he addresses the media, and you always learn something when Cal McGregor does speak to the press. It was brilliant to hear him talk about Arne Engels. I thought that those comments, they were the ones that really stood out to me, and they were the ones that I used for the headline for the Q&A that's on the website now if you want to have a look at it. So he's seen Arne Engels complete one training session, and he knew instantly this guy's a player. And that's what I love to hear and I love to see, because it can sometimes be difficult for a player to come in with that price tag to really show himself off and make himself known that he is this good player, the reason why Celtic have spent a record fee on him. But he's automatically came into training and shown not who's boss, but who's a really good player, and the reason why Celtic have signed him for that amount of money. So to hear the captain say that about Engels is good, and I hope that feeds back to Engels too. I hope that he reads that comment and really takes confidence from that, because Cal McGregor's played alongside a lot of good players in his time at Celtic and internationally for Scotland. If he's coming out with stuff like that, then it really does bode well for a guy that's only played 4 games for Celtic in all competitions thus far. You get Rangers, Hearts,
2.5.
Rangers, basically. But to make that impression, like everybody's talking about Engels at the moment, I think between him and Kuhn, those are the 2 players that are getting spoke about more than anybody else. And there's a reason for that. There's just an excitement. There's a willingness to watch this player in the flesh. I'm just looking forward to Saturday to getting another, hopefully 90 minutes of Arne Engels at McDermott Park.
He also spoke about the team having speed, power and physicality. I think those were the 3 words that he used. Yeah, speed, power and physicality. And that's been very obvious to see this season, Joy, especially the speed.
Yeah. And I don't think he mentioned it yesterday, but one of my favourites whenever he's speaking is that slickness as well. So when you combine all those ingredients, it's what we've seen so much of and enjoyed this season so far. One of the first questions he answered about the men's team yesterday, obviously spent a dedicated portion speaking about the women's team and kind of bigging them up and what sort of things he thinks about getting into a big Champions League game. But when he spoke about the men's, he was asked about specifically the Falkirk game and addressing the manager, saying the manager made 8 changes and he felt himself that he'd maybe made too many tweaks, and that was why it was a little bit sluggish before it got really exciting. And he spoke about balance in that. So all those attributes that he brings in about the power and the speed, and then mentioned slickness before, how the team managed to balance that over the course when we've got these kind of peaks and troughs, these highs and lows, with the greatest respect to people like Falkirk, or if you're going from Europe to the League Cup or whatever. I'm quite excited to see how Celtic managed to maintain that. I would probably prefer if it wasn't quite as heart and mouth stuff as it was last week. This is obviously the first time I've spoken on the pod about it.
Yeah.
It was very kind of, that escalated quickly, Ron Burgundy Anchorman style, but got there in the end and it came good. But yeah, it's like Ryan says, that whenever the captain speaks, he just fills you with confidence. And it was always the same when it was Scott Brown and going back further, Neil Lennon, Paul Lambert, whoever. But Callum McGregor just seems to, you come away from his, anytime you hear him speaking and you feel good about where Celtic are just now and kind of what they're hoping to achieve. So, and we've seen a lot of him recently, haven't we? He's been up in front of the media about 4 or 5 times in as many weeks recently, building up to the big games. So yeah, it's a good position to be in, and we're now looking forward to the weekend. And then very shortly after that, there's obviously an away trip in Europe at stake. So yeah.
Fabulous. He was speaking about Scott Brown as well, wasn't he? He was asked, there's a chance you go up against Scott Brown this weekend. Since the press conference, it's emerged that Scott Brown has declined the offer to take over at St Johnstone. I believe he's had meetings with the hierarchy at St Johnstone. So clearly that was very serious. Scott Brown's decided to stay at Ayr United. He's got quite a good thing going there. So no Scott Brown this weekend, Ryan, but I think it's a matter of time before he's coming up against us.
Yeah, absolutely. Cal McGregor even said that in his press conference yesterday. He believes it's only a matter of time before Scott Brown takes charge of a Scottish Premiership team. You wouldn't imagine Cal McGregor to go anywhere else, so you would expect the former teammates to be against each other. One is a player still, and the other one is an opposition manager. I still can't shake the the feeling in my head that makes me think that he'll go to Hibs at some point in the next year or so. I've spoke about that. I don't know if I'm not trying to manifest into reality or anything like that. For any Hibs fans that may be watching this morning, but I think it'd be a great next step for him. I think it'd be a perfect next step. And I was talking about it yesterday, and it's not to wish somebody out of a job in David Gray, because you want to see other managers do well, not too well, because you want them to be struggling against Celtic. But it's been known over the past 5-6 years that the Hibs job does not get filled for very long. You maybe have a season or two if you're lucky, and then it'll be a new manager coming through the door. I think Scott Brown has realised St Johnstone is a good club. It's a team in the Premiership. They're a team that maybe not on the up on the pitch, but they're on the up off it with the new ownership. But I think he knows that he's got something good at Ayr United. He can display winning football, winning games in the Championship. It's an exciting league, the Championship, this season, alongside Falkirk, Partick Thistle, Queen's Park, etc. But he knows that there'll be other jobs in the pipeline. In the next few months, I think it's the best example to show himself off, playing at a winning team or managing a winning team in Ayr United at the moment. And I think maybe going to St Johnstone, who by all accounts I think will be struggling with relegation this season. They'll be one of the forefront teams that are facing that drop this season. So yeah, I think it's a good move for him to not take that job, because I think there's better jobs in the pipeline.
Do you guys reckon Scott Brown will manage Celtic in the future?
I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? It's hard to say. Right now, Scott Brown's managerial career is, he's still in his infancy. He's still Brendan Rodgers at Swansea or something. He's still building up to bigger and better things. He seems to have done a remarkable job at United so far. Top of the league, I know they're top of the league, aren't they? They've played 2 games more than Falkirk in second place, having drawn the last 2 or 3 games, the last I checked. But no, and wins.
They're level on points with Falkirk.
Yeah. But no, in terms of, I think that the dream scenario for him would be to bring United up and then look at his options. Then, not about to compare the kind of Vincent Kompany situation like for like, but it sort of is, bringing a less likely team up and then maybe see how you fare and see where your options are after that. If he continues on this trajectory, there's always that thought of it could happen. It's not happened for some time. Obviously Neil Lennon has been a player and come in, did a really good job the first time. Did a good job until it wasn't going so well the second time, is probably a polite way of putting it. But there obviously is that kind of added pressure. But it's a similar conversation as, should Henrik Larsson have taken the job at some point? My answer's probably no. Hadn't done enough.
Was he ever close?
I think before Ronnie Dyler came in was as close as it got, wasn't it? And that might just have been rumours and I don't know that there was any kind of formal conversations had, but it felt like... Yeah. I certainly felt as a supporter, it felt like it could have happened at that point back in 2015.
Larsson was the feeling as fans that we maybe didn't want him because he might tarnish his legacy. I don't know if the same would be there with Scott Brown. I don't know if it's hard to explain, because I do think Scott Brown is a modern day Celtic legend, but I don't have the same.
I think you're right. I think it's the kind of Alan Shearer going to Newcastle, isn't it? He didn't tarnish his legacy, but obviously didn't really work out. For me, it would need to be that Scott Brown would need to have longer in management. He would need to be right for the job. Romance can't ever dictate these decisions, and it's hard to say just now because we've got such an established manager who's come back in and proven so much to get back to where we are. I would never rule it out, but. The circumstances would need to be right, and it doesn't feel like it's any time soon, I suppose. Yeah.
Just closer to home, I guess. Ali McCoist as Rangers manager, that put me off any notion of a legendary striker joining Celtic to be their manager. I don't think he's got the CV for it as a manager anyway. I know he's been the assistant at Barcelona under Ronald Koeman, but at the same time, I just don't. I think that ship sailed if it ever was there in the first place, but. And I quite like having that sort of mystique of Henrik Larsson. He comes and talks about Celtic every so often. Maybe does a dinner or a award ceremony or two. But I like having that. I like having that distance between them, because I think it just adds to his mystique and aura, to be honest with you.
Okay, the verdict on Scott Brown, Henrik McLarsson, no. Smell the glove, nope. Kyle is given it 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Colin reckons too many variables to predict. Jerry's got his own prediction, not in the near future. Brendan is here for the 10. That will be his legacy.
We've been stung with this before.
I would be. It's a long way off. I'll make no comment. Who knows where we'll be at that stage? Steve-O has a bet on that Ange will be the next Celtic manager. So we're just going between Ange and Brendan and Neil Lennon. Is that just those three names in a merry-go-round? Seeing what else people are saying. Edward reckons he could manage now, but if a rebuild is required, he could struggle. Yeah, Celt talking about Lenny ball and Brown tactics potentially, but I think Scott Brown's playing some really good stuff with Ayr United from what I hear. It's going to be. I'm just trying to get my head, from Scott Brown, and I don't think Scott Brown's end goal is to be Celtic manager. It might be, but I just get the impression he kind of won't be that first. I think he'll just want to go as far as he can and see where that takes him. But I think if he was to do well at a Premiership club, say a Hibs, for example, went into Hibs, finished third, something like that, I think people would at that stage be talking about him as a potential Celtic manager, and it's not that long off. Obviously, a few things would have to happen, but I think he'd have to do it at a bigger club than Ayr. Certainly, you're not going to go from Ayr to Celtic. You might have to go down south. You might have to find one of those kind of Aberdeen or Hibs clubs and do well there. It's an interesting subject, though, guys. He's certainly not going to be against us on Sunday, so we can definitely mark that one down. Were you on Gustav Lagerbielke watch last night, Ryan? Is that how you spent your Thursday night?
Before I went to the cinema, yes. I was watching the 20 Man United game with the Liverpool West Ham game on in the background as well. So, multitasking. Plenty of Scottish influence or Scottish team influence in that 20 team. Remember a former Celtic target who's now 35. It's making me feel really, really old. Ricky van Wolfswinkel plays out wide for FC 20. He's the captain of 20. Lagerbielke came off the bench. It was, funnily enough, it was the same time as Sam Lammers, former Rangers striker, went to the bench after being subbed because he scored the decisive equaliser. I've got to say, 20 were very, very impressive in large parts of that game. Really good goalkeeper. They've got a couple of really good youngsters as well and around the team. You know what you're going to get with Man United. They're a bit weak defensively, but it was a good game. Lagerbielke didn't do anything that stood out to me in the sort of 15-20 minutes that he was on, but it was good for him to get his first minutes since joining 20 because he's not had any game time whatsoever. But he has been talking in the media saying that his football has never been better. And you'll see that that's quite a common theme with Celtic players that are maybe not even playing under Brendan Rodgers, but they're being coached by him and training every day. Every player that works under him, or most players, talk about how good the training is and the personal development. Even if he doesn't have a plan for you in the starting lineup, they always talk about how good the training was and how prepared you are for anything that comes. You've had Effie Ambrose talk in the past, you've got Gustav Lagerbielke, other players as well that don't immediately spring to mind. But that's just a measure of the manager, to be honest. And it's good that he keeps these players involved despite it not having game time, the fact that they're still front and centre of training. He says that the training's just as important, so it's good to see that. And I'm glad that he got some minutes last night for a great result for 20.
Yeah, Wednesday night. Sorry, I said Thursday. I'm just thinking Europa League. Not a bad place to make your debut, Joe. I see Haksabanovic is talking about potentially playing Rangers tonight as well. But I saw a report saying that he was going to miss the game as well, so I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought he was missing it, but I'll need to check that out.
He's injured.
Yeah, I mean,
why is he talking then if he's injured? Shut your mouth.
Haksabanovic. This is kind of what Haksabanovic does. We noticed that in the 2 years he was at the club.
Cryptic Instagrams, not so cryptic. I think it's great to see Gustav Lagerbielke obviously getting some game time and just the long inspiration of Brendan Rodgers on the training pitch, as Ryan says. I know that Scott Brown said that about his kind of managerial style. He's borrowed, I think Scott Brown, his words, says stolen ideas from all the managers that he's worked under. You know, the kind of rousing speeches from Neil Lennon, the hands-on man management style from Brendan Rodgers, which is great to see as well. Another thing that Cal McGregor said in his press conference was about seeing the manager, the most upset he'd been, and using that to, in the dressing room, normally a kind of cool and calm, collected manager. And it reminded me of speaking to James Forrest once about the Red Imps game, you know, the very first at Brendan Rodgers, and again speaking to him when we're working on James's book for the club, and I kind of said to him what was the reaction like at full time, because obviously that was quite a poor result in his first time being in the dressing room with the manager. And he says, he was just really, really calm, really cool, didn't really lose his temper at all, just spoke to them one-on-one and collectively as well, and obviously turned that result around in the away leg and went on to have a pretty decent Champions League group stage that included the 3-each draw with Manchester City and other games. So, interesting to see that kind of small insights you're getting into the dressing room, and to see Brendan Rodgers showing that emotion. We saw a little flash of it last season when he had that wee go at the kit man as well, and then made a joke about it when he was back in his press conference shortly after, apologising and saying, you know, just that the kit man was a really passionate Celtic man and the emotions get the better of him, kind of thing. But you're starting to see, I know that you guys have spoken about this on the pod several times, but you're starting to see a bit more of the character of Brendan Rodgers this time, I think. You know, like he was always, especially in those first 2 years in his first time here at the club, you saw the man, you saw the kind of the character that he presented, but there's a bit more of a human side to him this time, it feels. You're seeing more of those quirks, more of those jokes coming out, and more of, you know, those moments that the players are willing to share. Cal McGregor said that he saw him upset, and it was the most he'd seen him upset, and therefore, if he's getting upset, we need to do better, kind of thing. It's great to see those little snatches behind the scenes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think now he has that confidence, and he feels like the top dog in Scottish football. And I think, to be honest, he probably quite likes that about being up in Scottish football, because, you know, down south you've got a number of big names, and you know, he was still one of the most talked about managers down there when he was at Leicester, but he wasn't quite up there with the likes of Jurgen Klopp and guys like that. But I think when he's at Celtic, he's you know, without doubt, he's the top dog up here. He's the one that everyone's kind of looking forward to hearing speak at his press conferences. So he's clearly very confident. He must be loving watching the team at the moment. But I think he'll feel that there's even more to come for this team, and just really wanting that big marquee European result. I know that was a great last week, and look at I'm already moving on for last week. It was incredible and we loved it, but I want to see us beat a top team in this league phase, and we've got 3 of them coming up. I want us to win one of these next 3 matches, because I honestly think the team are capable of it.
Without a doubt. And you look at results elsewhere, you know, Atalanta get beat off of Como the other night. Borussia Dortmund get hammered off of Stuttgart the other night as well. So these results happen. Admittedly, less so in Europe, because these teams really turn it on when it comes to European competition. They really do sort of level themselves and get ready for whatever comes against them in Europe. But you never know. The results like this happen. They happen all the time. And I just hope that Celtic really stand up and be counted for in these 2 away games in particular coming up. Difficult grounds, you know, the Westfalen Stadium and in Bergamo as well. 2 intimidating places to go purely for the style of football that these 2 teams play. They'll be on the front foot, they'll be attacking. You've also got the atmosphere of Signal Iduna Park that's going to be absolutely incredible for anybody making the trip over. But Celtic aren't there to make up the numbers. They're here to get points. They've got 3 points on the board already. Admittedly, it was against Slovan Bratislava, which was expected, but at the same time, they've put themselves in a really good position. There are better teams in Celtic in that Champions League league phase that are on 0 points at the moment, so they're in a good position. If they can build upon that, I look at these 2 games as there's potential for points, but they're bonus ones. You've got to take the points at home they're the really important ones. I look at that Leipzig game, Young Boys, Club Brugge as well. These are games that Celtic have got to get points in. Zagreb away is a different one because I think Celtic will be going into that game thinking that they can get something against a team that shipped 9 last time out in the Champions League. Not saying that Celtic are anywhere near Bayern Munich's quality. They're going to be a team to watch this season, but I think they can get goals against the likes of Zagreb and the other away games as well, to be fair. But yeah, I just on Brendan Rodgers, I was looking back, and Cal McGregor's quotes yesterday about the angriest that he's been was at St Johnstone. You look back at that, and there was so many low moments last season, and you think about the way that the season ended, and everything was on a high, and everybody was delighted with the double. That middle part of the season, from about November to February, there was some real dark moments, some real bad results. They did really well to get themselves out of that rut that they were in. Well, it wasn't a rut because they were going up and down in terms of the results. They'd have maybe a good run of games, and then there'd be a disastrous result like against Hearts away or Motherwell at home, etc.
Yeah.
To actually, it really does show you how good a manager Brendan Rodgers is, because he managed to steady the ship and get them going and get them winning games when they really, really needed to, even when things were against them, like refereeing decisions, etc., injuries. To get a double out of that season, I think it'll be remembered so fondly that season. I'm delighted with the way that ended up, and I think you're now seeing the reason why it was working so well, and the reason it's working well this season is because all of those building blocks, as Cal McGregor said, were put in place last season. Now they've come into this season, and it's been a perfect start.
It does feel like that. It feels like the fact we came through that adversity last season, it feels like we're still feeling that now. It's almost as if the team have been freed because they know that everything that went wrong last season, we still won the league, and there's a feeling that we can be better this year, and the difference this year to last year's massive. Brown Warrior just saying Europe will define Brendan as a manager, great domestic manager, but has to prove himself in the big competitions for me. Gary is ready to get his heart broken. He's saying he's found his calling and will stay as long as we want him. I'm delighted for Brendan and Celtic. He won't be rushing out the door again. Do you reckon, Joe?
I hope so. I agree with the first comment there about being judged on European football. And again, we were saying this right before the Slovan Bratislava game, said it afterwards. But just kind of thinking back to the best European campaign under Brendan Rodgers is probably that first one, the Champions League, the 3-3 draw against Man City, the 2-2 draw down there.
1-1.
1-1 draw, Paddy Roberts, yeah. Wearing that black strip, which I wasn't that keen on. A little bit of Joe Lower there. That was probably the best run. And obviously a really exciting start to the season. Brendan Rodgers came up with a point to prove. Our rivals across the city were on the ascendancy back in the division. That first 5-1 game kind of sets a precedent. And then that was on the Sunday or the Saturday, whatever it was. We played Barcelona midweek and we're beating 5-0. 7-0, yeah, God. So, regardless of that being a team that was still finding its feet, the manager was still impressing his message. At that point, regardless of the stiffness of the competition or whatever, to beat your rivals 5-1, to set a marker down, and then to go in Europe and be defeated so badly, it obviously shows things a little bit off kilter. So this is different this time round, and I get there's a lot of Celtic fans out there just now saying, it's only Slovan Bratislava, it's only one game, but like we keep saying, like it's if you can't be confident just now, then what's the point? We can be confident just now. We might still go and face a defeat or even a heavy defeat on Tuesday. I hope it's not the case. But at this moment in time, going in with confidence, as you guys say, a season of adversity is probably a strong word, but there was moments, adverse moments that Celtic pulled through. It started the season brilliantly on domestic fronts, a history-making European win, regardless of the opposition, regardless of any of the circumstances, to then be going now and imagine getting a result on Tuesday night. What does that do for the mood around the club and the fans, and a draw or a win? And at that point, the belief just keeps growing. And again, even if it is a comprehensive defeat, nobody wants it, but Celtic have shown so much of their character and their belief and all those things that Cal McGregor was saying, that even if there's a defeat, I personally believe that you can still dust himself down and have something to say in Europe this year. So yeah, it's the The next stretch it will be much more difficult than the last stretch, in terms of away fixtures and things. But having their work cut out for them puts Celtic in the best position.
Yeah, it's I can't. I mean, Tuesday night is just going to be like fascinating to really find out how good this Celtic team are going up against, one of the better teams in Europe. Any thoughts on Saturday, guys? I know we've kind of I'll ask Joe because I'm not sure Joe will be back on before the game. So what are you thinking for Saturday?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a strange kick-off time, isn't it? But it's as before, isn't it? It's a tone. I mean, the manager always says, game by game, and it has to be that way. And I like that the manager and the players think that way. As supporters, we start to think with half an eye on the next result, but it's a good tone setter. It's never an easy game up there. Celtic have went up there and had good results, but it's a tough pitch. It's one which can get really heavy on the legs, especially as we start to move into the kind of darker weather. So yeah, it's by no means go up there and get out of the road and move on to Tuesday. They still have to put in the hard yards, but get a good result. As always, it can act as a springboard and take Celtic into what's a really important game Tuesday.
Final thoughts, Ryan?
Scoreboard pressure. Celtic playing Saturday, Rangers play on Sunday.
Because they're made.
I think they're free. Are they 3:00 on Saturday?
On us.
That is true. That is very true. It's a dog-eat-dog world, but and then we'll see how much staying power Aberdeen do have. I have said that Celtic have got the hardest draw of the League Cup facing Aberdeen at Hampden at this present moment. They're doing really, really well under their new manager, but we know how these seasons normally turn out with either Celtic or Rangers being first or second and the other one being the other way about, obviously. Put that pressure on. Rangers play on the Sunday. This is one of the drawbacks to playing in the Europa League. I know that some games take place on a Thursday in the Champions League, but mostly it's a Thursday for the Europa League. So you're going to have that Thursday, Sunday. Celtic can put the pressure on their rivals and really put the pressure on the opposition. Sorry, my dog's going absolutely mental.
You've got Tony at your house.
I know. Tony's waiting in the wings. I just think it's a real opportunity. That 5-point gap is brilliant at the moment to make it 8 and instantly put the pressure back. You know what Ibrox is like. The fans can maybe get behind or get on the players' backs if they don't get a quick and early start. So put that pressure on, and you never know what can happen. It remains to be seen if Aberdeen can continue their winning. That's all they've done this season, both in the League Cup and the Scottish Premiership. All they've done is win. Let's see how far that can go. But it's all about Celtic at the moment. Just keep on getting your wins, keep on accumulating maximum points, and see where that takes you. It should take you to where you want to be at the end of the season.
Let's hope so. Right, okay, we'll head off then. Bit of a quieter one today, but yeah, I'm still going to heat up over the next 10 days or so before the next international break. Another international break coming up, guys, with 3 big games before then. Thanks once again for chatting, both of you. Thanks everyone for tuning in, commenting, etc. If you haven't subscribed to the Celtic Way yet, please consider doing that. It helps us to find more Celtic fans like you. Check the website out. Loads going on the website, guys, as always.
Yep, absolutely. It's all systems go in terms of getting the previews done, getting the predicted lineups done. We'll have press conferences tomorrow. I'll be talking to a Borussia Dortmund fan very soon about the upcoming game on Tuesday, so that's something to look forward to as well. Plenty of stuff on the Celtic Way, and we're also bringing out the latest edition of the Grand Old Team podcast, which talks about Love Street in 1986. Kevin McKenna and Tony Haggerty both talking about that and their memories from that very fine day in Celtic's history, so keep an eye out on that in the next few years.
Fabulous, and a big good luck to Celtic FC women tonight. Go and get the result and get us into the Champions League group stage. Right, we'll chat to you tomorrow.
Cheers, guys.